Hi everyone, it's Yvette Le Blowitz from SpiritGirl.com and welcome to the Spirit Girl Talk Show podcast. I'm super excited to be here with you today and with our very special guest, Kate ODonnell, who is a Ayurveda practitioner, author. She's got 3 books, but today we're going to be speaking about the everyday Ayurveda guide to self-care. Kate, welcome to the Spirit Girl podcast show. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you here with us today. And welcome to our Spirit Girl global audience. How are you and how is our audience today?
Right before we started recording, we had this huge thunderclap outside. So we're in the middle of a heat wave here in northeastern United States. And we're getting some relief for the first time. It's been super hot for 4 days. So it's great that I can sit here and chat with you, Yvette, and not be sweating all over the place.
Yeah, I heard some of that cracker of a storm before we hit the record button. But Kate, you're absolutely glowing. For our podcast audience, you'll have to go to the Spirit Girl YouTube channel. Kate, you are just this glowing, radiant, your skin. Before we dive into your book, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
I'll be 43 this fall, and I don't have any kids. I have been practicing yoga and Ayurveda and traveling to India since I was 19. So I got into this stuff pretty young and was instantly hooked. I started with the yoga and was practicing in South India. I was just kind of a backpacker at the time. I just always wanted to go to India. So as soon as I could get there at 19, I did. And I got hooked on yoga right away. I got sick, traveling, and ended up at an Ayurvedic doctor. And I had such a profound experience with the medicine that I kind of started studying Ayurveda. I've been practicing yoga this whole time, 20 something years, and have been studying Ayurveda the whole time as well. And everything that I've done along this path, Yvette, has been like this necessity being the mother of invention. So it's like people need to learn, more about how to cook. So I make an Ayurvedic cookbook. People need to learn a little more about self-care and seasonal rituals and daily rituals. So I write the book, and it's just been really awesome to be an educator and a practitioner and work with people and observe these sciences that are 2,000 years old from the subcontinent of India, just to observe how they can serve us now and kind of be rooted in our daily lives. And I've just seen amazing healing with people, and it's a really rewarding profession.
And for someone who's tuning in wondering what is Ayurveda, can you share a little bit more about what it is and the philosophy behind it?
Ayurveda is, as I said, it's several thousand years old. It is the medical science of India. But what's interesting about Ayurveda is that in the texts where all the knowledge has been codified, over these thousands of years of trial and error, sort of observing human beings in different environments, the food that we eat, the medicines that we use, the interactions we have with other people, the Ayurveda takes into account not only our physicality, but also the subtle body, so the world of energy, and also the energy of the mind. So you've got this real interchange between the physical body and the mental wellness. And also what's a big part of the philosophy in Ayurveda is about prevention. So about kind of catching imbalances earlier on before we kind of get into having a disease. And so a lot of what I share is prevention. So although the science does go into chikitsa or therapeutic methodology for diseases, I'm really passionate about kind of helping people know the signs in their own bodies of when imbalances are starting to come around and what to do about it, so we can avoid getting so sick in the first place when possible.
I love how it is more preventative, but also combines the energy of the mind and body and the balancing. It's really big in the spa industry, spa and wellness industry. There are a lot of spas globally that have the Ayurveda practices, like the treatments and the therapies, and a lot of yoga teachers are very big in it. What are some of your self-care rituals?
Well, it's been 20 years in the making. It's interesting because I started out with the yoga, and so many of my routines around like bedtime and wake up time and when I eat and what I eat, a lot of those things were kind of baked into the yoga method for me. So I've always been on this kind of like early to rise, early to bed schedule. And at this point, I couldn't do it any other way, I don't think. And according to Ayurveda, a lot of our daily routines, when we live in accordance with natural rhythms, it's like we're rowing our boat along with the current of nature, that is the environment in which we as human beings live. So when our rhythms get sort of off of the natural cues, it's like we start rowing our boat against the current, and eventually it makes you feel kind of tired, and the vitality in the body, it's like you have to work harder for it. So things like waking with the sun, sort of getting up closer to sunrise and getting to sleep early is really important. I can't say enough about what that does for balance in the mind, in the digestion, in the hormones. The Ayurveda texts actually describe that sleep is a matter of life and death. Like really, sleep is huge.
Yeah, sleep is so huge. I even know if I don't go to bed early, I'm not at my best game, don't feel that good mentally, physically, like emotionally. It really puts everything off balance. And I've sadly seen family members who have struggled with insomnia and the health implications. And I also know there are a lot of people now with technology and being so wired that the feed becomes more important, looking at that, than sleep. So I love how you've just shared how important sleep is.
The thing that we can all like a take-home message is that if you think about bodily processes, like all the things that bodies have to do, we wake up and we go to bed, we get hungry and we eat. On a deeper level, we have the metabolic factor, we have the correct balance of the hormones. All of these things operate in a rhythm. The body is responding to natural cycles, like the time of day and the season, the time of life, our aging process. And everything, like, you get hungry at a similar time, you get tired at a certain time, the menstrual cycle for women is coming at a similar time. All these rhythms are there. And so at the most basic, a daily self-care regimen in Ayurveda is about creating rhythms, like patterns, because that's how bodies do best. So if we can be a little more regular about when we have our main meal, when we wake up, when we do our exercise, and it's just about having it doesn't have to be this like perfect march, from the time that we wake up to the time we go to bed, not at all. But I think if we just have a few touchstones, it keeps the body in this kind of more relaxed and more vibrant place where the digestion is better and the sleep is better. And the mind, of course, is also at ease inside a rhythmic container.
So what time roughly would you go to bed as a guide and wake up?
The prevention aspect of Ayurveda gives us is this sort of daily rhythm. And it's based on the bodily processes that naturally go on at different times of day. And so there's this magic time around 10 p.m. where the body, the fire element, so Ayurveda is this 5 element system. So we're looking at the body as in terms of a combination of space, air element, fire, water, and earth. So we get our grounding from the earth, we get moisture from water, we get the digestive and transformational quality from fire. Air, we get movement, and space, we get the creativity. and the space for movement, of course. When you look at what bodies do, for instance, one of the really important cycles is that fire element kicks in when we're asleep in the middle of the night and does the detoxification of the blood. So from a Western science perspective, we'd say it's the liver kicks in, right, and starts purifying the body. And it brings all of the wastes to the digestive tract. And ideally, when you get up in the morning, you take a pee, you take a poop, right? And you kind of cleared the things that detoxified during that time in the night, which is between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So in the Ayurveda self-care routine, like one of the more important things we can work on is getting to bed closer to 10. And if you don't, and people don't have to take my word for it, our listeners can try this, but around 10 p.m. you get a second wind, right? It's the fire element kicking in the body because it has a job to do. So you get this energy. And if we're awake, we're likely to put that energy into some external project or something. But when we're asleep at that time, that fire kicks in and does detoxification, which is huge. And it's okay if we skip it sometimes, obviously. We're not always going to go to bed right on time. But in general, our routine on the most part is to be asleep close to 10, we're going to be so much happier and healthier. It's just kind of a simple thing. Not always simple to do, but it's a simple idea,
I love that. I love how you've explained that, because in all of the research I'm doing just most recently, it's all aligning where if you can get into bed like definitely 9:30 and by 10, all of our functioning within needs to start that detoxification. But also they're saying even for our brain and that processing, we don't want to be up at 2 a.m. in the morning on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchatting friends. And so many people, when they open the device, that keeps them up because it blocks the melatonin. And then you're right. I have experienced being up at 10 o'clock, getting that second wind and going, wow, okay, I can do some more work. And then before you know, it's midnight. But you do that for too long, you will absolutely burn out, put weight on, have digestion problems. So I've experienced why it is much better to go to bed before 10, but I have to be so disciplined, because the moment you're on technology in the evening, look out. Like, it's really discipline. Put it on airplane mode, put it away. And then I swap over to a book to kind of like wind down. What are some other self-care rituals that you love to do also?
I kind of love tongue scraping, which is it's a part of the morning routine. So as I described, when we're asleep, the body is detoxifying, right? And the digestive tract is the primary channel for the body to get rid of toxins. So when you wake up in the morning, this is when all the toxins are ripe for removal, right? And so hopefully we poop in the morning. That is definitely an ideal. But if stuff's trying to come out sort of the other end, like say some foods that you took yesterday didn't digest great in the stomach. And so there's just some kind of like not well digested toxins hanging out in the stomach. The body's going to try to kick it out through the northern channel, through the esophagus, right? And so when you wake up in the morning, there's generally a little bit of a mucus on the back of the tongue. And so the practice of tongue scraping is to use stainless steel or a copper tool that looks kind of like a little U shape. Yeah. And you just get right in there first thing before you drink anything, before you eat anything. It's just lean over the sink, scrape the tongue 5, 6, 7 times. Kind of get the sides and in the little divot there, and you'll see that there's a mucus that comes off. You just rinse it down the sink and then start the day, because otherwise that undigested mucus, your body's actually trying to get rid of something there. And so when we get up and just go ahead and have the coffee or start drinking water or whatever, it's going to get washed back down into the digestive tract. So it's a little graphic, a little gross, but this is the reality of bodies. And the tongue scraping, what I noticed, Yvette, is when people, This is always like the first routine I recommend to people, because if you hang the scraper near your toothbrush, it's easy. Like you'll remember, you'll do it. It takes like 5 seconds. And when you see the mucus and then you feel and taste sort of freshness in the mouth, you're like, wow. So all of my people, they go and like start buying tongue scrapers for their partners and their families, and they want everyone to do it.
I've heard so much about the tongue scraping and how powerful it is. And I really wanted to share that as part of your book and everything. And you're big on yoga as well, aren't you, as a way of self-care and taking care of yourself. How did this yoga journey unfold for you?
Epic story, but long story short is, I got in India that first time when I was 19. I was introduced to a method called Ashtanga yoga, which comes out of South India. And so I was sort of near to the city where the family that teaches that yoga originated. And most of my trips to India, been to India, I don't know, 20 something times since I was 19. And I usually am in that city of Mysore in South India, which is where I learned a lot of my cookery, which is in my cookbooks, and where I learned my yoga. And so I was primarily just practicing this one method of yoga, which is fairly vigorous. And I liked that. I was kind of like an athletic, physical person, even as a youth. And I just learned like how to practice yoga, how to be disciplined, how to be regular about it. And I held a yoga community also for 12 years in the city of Boston. And it was like my livelihood. It was everything. I was like full on yoga. And I would practice a lot. It would be an hour and a half, 2 hours every day. And I was kind of advanced. I did a lot of wild, really exciting stuff, And as I've gotten older and busier, I think that's part of it. Now I'm writing all these books. It's like I'm very busy. I stopped teaching yoga 3-4 years ago. And now it's just, for myself. And I will say that as it's evolved, I've definitely learned through Ayurveda how to shift my practice seasonally. So according to the time of year and the weather and when the sun is rising, my practice might be more or less vigorous. At times there's more just breathing exercises as opposed to physical postures. And then at other times of year when things are a little slow and sluggish and I need to get moving, I'll do something more vigorous. And so I feel like I have this really nice arc over the course of an annual cycle where the yoga is kind of like taking me through the different changes seasonally. It's for me really a chance to also just like be with me. That's the thing about yoga. You don't need any bells and whistles to do it. No, it's just you and yourself, and it's kind of a quiet time. And the attention is mainly on the breath. Yoga is primarily a breathing exercise. Maybe we throw some physical, body stuff in there too, but it's primarily a science of the mind and the breath. And I feel like I can continue learning about it the rest of my life easily.
I love how your yoga journey unfolded. And I love how you had what sounded like a pretty hectic schedule when you're teaching and running classes and all of those things. But now you don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time, and you can just relax and do your own practice. And that must feel so good tuning in. I love yoga. And as the years have evolved, I've just like tune in with what I need. You're very big on tuning into your body sensations and what you need. Is that a very important part of your kind of overall self-care rituals as well? Self-awareness and tuning in?
I love that question, Yvette, because it's everything. Ayurveda is an awareness practice. The way I like to describe this is when you have a plant that you're taking care of, you observe the plant to see whether it needs more water, if it's in the right, place. Maybe you need to move it around in the house so it gets more or less sunshine. If you overwater it, it starts to look sad. If you underwater it, and we don't judge the plant, for needing more of this or less of that or whatever. We just observe and provide what the plant needs for health. And I think that it's the same thing with bodies. we just learn to observe, I'm feeling like low energy today. So, what do I need to do to feel more vitality? Maybe I need to eat less processed food and get really some fresh fruits and vegetables in me today, or maybe I've been over exercising and I need rest. Maybe I just need to rest for a couple of days. What I observe so often, Yvette, is that a lot of us just want somebody to give us the rules and tell us what to do, and we just follow it. And that's just not the way it works. As these organisms existing in communication in tandem with natural rhythms, we're constantly undergoing changes. It hasn't rained in days, so I need more moisture. I'm going to oil my skin. I'm going to drink more water. Or it's super moist. It's been raining all, month. And so I'm going to actually eat foods that are drying and do some body therapies that remove excess moisture. There's this flow that's always going on between the consciousness and the body. I think if we're very honest and real about self-care, then we can just simply provide what's needed. Provide the qualities that are needed, at any given time.
I love that. Provide the qualities that are needed at any given time, because it is such an intuitive process of self-awareness, self-care. And say, for instance, someone who's in New York City doing something in the winter, their life, what's going on for them, their circumstances is so different to, say, someone in Australia in summer. So our self-care needs, even based on the seasons, which you've talked a lot about, are different. So even though someone might be doing a certain HIIT workout, if you're in winter, you're probably thinking, I can hardly get out of bed, let alone do, jumping on a box at, today. So it's so intuitive and so unique. When it comes to your food, what are some of your go-to foods you love to eat? If you could even share a go-to recipe, that would be incredible also.
My 3 books, the first 2 are cookbooks. And not because I'm a chef or anything. I do love food. I'm not fancy with it though. I just need to eat, and it's got to be done in a half hour or less, and I can't be bothered. So everything is all my recipes are really practical and simple. And I think that food, if you let the food itself, if it's a fresh, high quality ingredient, natural, it's going to taste good. It doesn't need a bunch of craziness. We can just eat it. And when I started practicing Ayurveda with the public, it kept coming to this place that people just didn't know what to eat. And there was a lot of concern about foods that are right and foods that are wrong. And I found it created a lot of anxiety for people. And food is it's our most basic relationship that we have with the natural world. Our body is actually built of food. The 5 elements that are present in the food then make the tissues of our bodies. So the activity of eating is actually creating a spiritual relationship and connection with the world that supports us. And I think that's missing for a lot of us in how we approach food. So food to me it is kind of a sacred thing. I sit down when I eat. I take time to eat the food. And I really enjoy grocery shopping. I love being around ingredients and food. And I'll buy, if people can get to a farmer's market and buy local and seasonal stuff, there's a lot of data right now on the importance for our microbiome, which I'm sure you've come across these ideas. But to be able to eat foods that are grown in local soil is really important. And so one of my favorite things, Yvette, that I do all the time is make soup. I eat soup all the time. It is the most digestible. It's nourishing, but really easy to digest. So we'll have very few digestive byproducts,
Wow.
gas, bloating, indigestion when we eat soup. And one of my favorite things that I'm a little obsessed with right now is this green soup, it's sort of the alternative to a green juice. It's warm, right? And so I'll take a bunch of greens, whatever I can get. In the summer, I'll take zucchinis. I'll get kale, Swiss chard, spinach. Green beans are delicious in here. And I will parboil those just for 10 minutes. So just to soften the cell wall, right? So that you get a creamy soup that way. And then I take coconut milk, like a full fat coconut milk. If you can get fresh, I think some of your listeners will actually be able to get fresh coconut milk quite easily. Yeah. Myself in New England, I use the canned coconut milk, but the full fat, right? And so it's half water or veggie broth and half full fat coconut milk and a pile of greens. Usually I do about 4 cups of greens and then I cook them down, and I'll do a cup of coconut milk, a cup of broth or water, and then I blend it. So I put it in a blender, or I use a hand blender. And then spices, you could use garden herbs like oregano, thyme, tarragon. Parsley is actually really delicious in there. Or we can go for the Ayurvedic spices, which we'd be talking cumin, coriander, fennel, turmeric. I have different spice mixes in my books that are kind of fun to make. There's a different one for each season. And I'll just drop a teaspoon of the Ayurvedic spice mix in there, blend it all up, and then you have this like creamy, beautiful green soup. And you've just ingested kind of an amazing amount of vegetables. And it's very grounding, it's very like comfort food, but it actually takes like less than 15 minutes to make.
That's incredible. And we're currently here, it's winter in Australia. And I was like, that is the perfect recipe that we all need to try anywhere in the world, because getting 4 cups of the vegetables, like the doctors are saying you need minimum 6 cups of vegetables, and the average person is maybe not even having 2 cups of green vegetables. But you just mix it up. So you've got your zucchini, your beans, kale, spinach. So whatever you can get your hands on in greenery, and then the coconut milk. And I love how you said full fat. So as in just getting anything closest to nature. Loved how you mentioned soup is so digestible. So anyone who's having problems with IBS or constipation, or really going through a lot of stress or anxiety and it's causing havoc to the gut, soup is just so nourishing and easy to digest. What about breakfast? What would breakfast look like for you?
I think a pretty good breakfast for a lot of people is hot cereal. So in the summertime, I will have fruit, because fruit is better on an empty stomach because it does digest at a different rate from other food. Fruit will digest in an hour, hour and a half. So if we have it along with food, it's going to sit in the gut past the point where it's digested, and then it can become a little kind of sour. So I like to eat fruit on an empty stomach. So first thing in the morning, when fruit is in season, I will absolutely eat fruit, but I tend to not eat much fruit in the wintertime. Maybe an apple, but I'll cook it. I'll do a cooked apple. I'll do a hot cereal with quinoa. Is pretty light. That goes down really easy, and I'll cook the quinoa in almond milk. And then I'll add a little bit of my sweet spice mix, which is cinnamon, cardamom, and ginger powder. And that gives a really nice flavor. And sometimes if I feel like I need more, I might chop up a date or 2 medjool dates and cook them in with the milk and the quinoa. At other times, I might add slivered almonds or sunflower seeds or something like that. I think the breakfast really depends on like how active a person is. If you're going to sit at a computer, you might not need the same amount of food that someone who's going to go dig a ditch needs.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I'll do a hot cereal a lot, and I'll do cooked fruit, prunes and apples and dates, and that's a lighter breakfast. But I find, and I'll add again some of the cinnamon, ginger powder, and cook it with just cook it down in water to make kind of like a stewed fruit. And when I don't feel like I need a grain or the nuts and the seeds and all that, I'll just have the stewed fruits. And those are both really nice. Kind of works in the fall and the winter and the spring. And then in the summer, if I can just go to town on a watermelon, I'm pretty happy, because it's such a short season that we get fruit like that.
Yeah. I love how you eat in season, and also I love how there's this become more important during COVID-19, the global pandemic, of eating locally and what's in season and what you can get from the farmers market as well. And what about your drinks? So we have a massive coffee culture in Australia where it's like, got to grab a coffee, got to be takeaway. It's huge. I'm sure it's the same in America and so many places globally. But when you go to get, say, a warm drink in the morning, is it coffee, tea? What does that look like for you?
For many years, Yvette, when I got up at 4 a.m, I was very addicted to chai. So we would take a really high quality milk and the Indian tea and fresh ginger root and cinnamon. We'd use coconut sugar as the sweetener. Or if we could get jaggery, I used to actually bring jaggery home from India in my suitcase. And jaggery is just evaporated cane juice. So if someone's looking for that natural sugarcane product, you can buy it. You don't have to bring it in the suitcase. So I drink chai religiously for many years. And this past year, actually, I stopped with the caffeine. And
Wow.
And I was really into caffeine. So, but I'm a proponent, as is Ayurveda, of seasonal cleansing. So I usually undergo a cleanse where I come off of any kind of processed food and caffeine, alcohol, white sugar, all those things that creep in and are just like kind of everywhere. I'll come off of those things usually for at least a couple of weeks in the spring and in the fall. And so when I stopped with the caffeine this fall, it just like kind of didn't come back. And I can notice, you mentioned my skin, and also under the eyes is where because I will get bags under my eyes if I have caffeine regularly. And that is a sign of adrenal fatigue. It's kind of pushing the caffeine pushes the adrenals. And I just know that's a weak spot for me genetically. And so I switched over to a dandelion coffee. And that it's just roasted dandelion root. And there's tons of brands. I'm sure you have all sorts of different brands there of herbal coffee. And I still put the coconut sugar and I still put the raw milk. And I might put fresh ginger in it in the wintertime and cardamom in the summertime. And that's my morning drink. And I've been like totally satisfied with that.
Wow. That's incredible. Did you feel when you were going off the chai, kind of like, the caffeine, that you had withdrawals for someone who drunk it for so long, just regularly?
Yeah, I love that you're asking me about that because I lead cleanses as well seasonally, and I get a ton of communication from my cleansers, and they're like really worried because they're having these headaches, and it's the craziest sensation. And they're like, I don't think it's caffeine withdrawal. It can't be. And I say, yes, it is. Because I have gone through it like a number of times now over the years. And it is awful. My partner and I both will like fall upon the bed and want to do nothing but sleep for 3 solid days. It's the weirdest, it's like your eyes, it's like your eyes feel like there's sandbags in there. And the headache it's like a migraine. It's of that kind of intensity. And for me, goes on for 3 or 4 days.
I can resonate with this because I did a coffee caffeine detox. So one of my best friends, I'll give her a shout out, Narelle Delabate, she was drinking like 6 cups of coffee just to keep the energy up. She was studying at university, a mum, just had so much on the go. So she'd be having coffee, obviously, to keep her going energy-wise. And then she discovered that she was just feeling really scattered. She did a lot of research, which showed that actually drinking coffee can make you more scattered and make it more difficult to focus on the task. So she got me on to trying coffee detox. And I kid you not, like I did it for a month, but I tell you what, that first week, the first few days, I was in bed sick, like headaches, like it was, oh my goodness, so intense. I couldn't believe, like my body was just craving this caffeine, and I was so sick because I wasn't getting it, and the headaches were like through the roof. Once I got past that, and I was able to still have like my herbal teas and things like that, but it wasn't the proper takeaway coffee from the coffee shop. And mind you, I was having one of them a day, or maybe even two sometimes if I was working in the city. But the clarity I got maybe like day 14, the clarity, the brain fog had gone. Like when you're really stressed and anxious and you drink coffee, it makes you more stressed and anxious. Well, not all people, but for myself, and I've spoken to other people where it kind of gets you all hyped up. So I just found it over time to be really calming on the central nervous system, really great for the brain, really great for the mind. But I can resonate with you and all of your cleansing students and participants when you go off caffeine, because you just don't realize how much it affects your body in a way where when it's not there, it wants more. Now, I want to ask you, like, obviously you've written 3 books now. How did you find the time to sit down, and what did the writing process look like? Because I know, being a self-published author of It Starts With Me, that creatively sitting down and getting the words out and writing, there's a lot of work in it. And that's even before the editing part. How did you carve the time out, Kate, to do this?
That's a good question. I mean, I did say already I don't have children. I think that is part of why I have 3 books.
They're your 3 babies.
Exactly.
You're like, I've only got 1 baby, but yeah, I can resonate with this totally, where you're like, okay, I don't have kids, so I'm just going to write books. It does keep you busy. So that's awesome.
What I've come to know about myself, actually, my process for writing is that I like to really, because the concepts, Ayurveda is, it's epic in its depth and breadth. So I have a very hard time moving in and out of the writing process. So when I go into like writing mode, I usually incubate and research and such for a good 6 months, sometimes even a year. And then when I sit down to write, the book it's already there somewhere. And you know what I mean? Like I've been thinking about it without actually writing anything down. Maybe every now and then I'll write down a sentence or, something. I do keep little brainstorm documents, but what I do now is I shut everything else down and I actually travel to a different place for a month or 2. And I just immerse. And I actually have written, most of my books have primarily been written in India. So I'm like in India while I'm writing. Yeah. And it's just, it's an easy place for me to just be and do. I have had to put my foot down about shutting everything down for a month or 2. And I find if I can then I can write like at least half the book in that month or 2, where it's all I'm doing. And I'll work for like as much as 5 hours in a day. And I still cook my own food and, try not to get into caffeine and alcohol and that kind of stuff too much when I'm writing. And then I think there's another 6-month process after that where it's almost like I've got the garden bed ready and put in the seeds, and now I'm just watering, so I will continue I'll set aside 3 days here, an afternoon there, and just put in like 2 or 3 hours and just bang something out. But for me, what I realize is it's just, I'm not one of those people who like writes for an hour every day. I think that the concepts are coming together in the ethers for me, and the creative zone in the mind is like churning on the topic for at least a year. And then I just like make everything go away and just boom, and like channel it and get the words, get the concepts like into the words. And I just need very little disturbance during that time. And I'll kind of like eat and breathe it for as much as like 6 weeks, maybe.
Wow. When you just reminded me of Dr. Wayne Dwyer in that moment, because he used to do this where he'd study up a particular topic and then immerse himself in it, live it, breathe it, eat it, sleep it, and sort of let it pour out of him. When you obviously switch off, say, from social media, emails, it must just help totally, like you said, to be in the zone or to be in the flow, or you're not distracted. Because I too can't really just write for an hour, because it's like you've got this great idea. Like when I wrote my book, I woke up, I think, at 3:30 in the morning and just started pouring out of me. Like it was within me to write and share my own self-care rituals as well, but it just came out of me. But then I spent hours and hours and hours and hours getting it down on the paper, and it was just a flow process. But I don't think if I sort of scheduled in, I've got to write from 4:30 to 5:30, that it would have even happened. You also have launched some online courses through the Ayurveda Living Institute. Can you share a little bit more about that with us?
This was something I started pre-COVID, actually. What I wanted to do was create more resources for my readers, because what I would find is while a lot of people get a ton out of working with my books in their daily life, there's also people who are overwhelmed by the amount of content in a book. And so with the courses, I could sort of break it down and also guide people through videos, PDFs, and create like more resources to help them not only understand intellectually. I feel like that's like the least important aspect of Ayurveda, but to like get it happening in their life, So I think it was able to take bite-sized chunks. And so I can cover a different topic with each course, and people can kind of start wherever they want. They can focus on cooking, they can focus on digestion, they can do a seasonal cleanse with me. And I think it's a way for people to hear me speak also, because, as a writer, it's like I'll meet people and they'll be like, oh, I feel like I know you, because I read your book.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible? The power of reading a book and then feeling like you're their friend or you know them. I love how you created the extra resources, because especially with your book, a lot of it is self-care, and even with your recipes and things, like just even hearing you talk about the recipe that you shared with us earlier, which we will try, literally the greens coconut soup recipe, just hearing that, sometimes you absorb it better. You might have read the recipe, like looked at the recipe, but just to hear about the recipe from you is so powerful too. You also talked about online cleanses, that you help people with an online cleanse.
Right, which I kind of joke about, Yvette. I call it a Ayurveda boot camp. because I think most people can do anything for 10 days. Carve out the time and like fully get on board and do the routine. So we get up at X time, we scrape the tongue, we do some breath exercises, we make some breakfast. We have like several Zoom calls throughout the 10 days where I can like answer their questions. We have a discussion group. So it's like in real time that I can be there guiding people through it, because maybe they need to eat more food, maybe they're having a blood sugar problem, maybe they can't sleep, all the kind of things that come up when you make major changes in your lifestyle and in your diet. What I'm going for with this is that people have an experience in the body for real of what it's like to feel good.
Wow.
So we actually, we detox it, we live it, we're in community, because it's like so much easier than trying to do this sort of thing by yourself if it's new to you. Yeah. And then I just encourage people, just pick like one or two of these routines and stick with that. Because you don't live the cleanse forever, you know what I mean? But people I think they get enough positive feedback from their own body that like, this feels good, this is working for me. I see people get balanced mentally as well as physically. People with anxiety, depression, a lot of difficulties that are up for a lot of people in the past year and two. And my enrollment in these cleanses has like doubled since COVID, because I think people need more support. And people just have an experience of feeling good, and it's really motivating. It's a super motivating thing to get you to take better care of yourself.
Yeah, and I love how it's a sense of community and you can support them, because it's true, when you are at home on your own during the global pandemic and you're in lockdown, but you're really wanting to work on feeling good, you feel somewhat at times cut off and isolated. But by reading the book, partaking in the online cleanse or boot camp with you, just that extra support and being able to ask questions, and it's so powerful. And I truly believe, I have this saying that I want to make feeling good go viral. Let's feel good from within. And that's why I really wanted to share your book and your work. So Kate, how can we stay in touch with you now after the podcast show?
I'm pretty active on Instagram. I have a fun time there, actually connecting with people. I do cooking demos on Instagram Live. That's kateodonnell.ayurveda. And you can also check out Ayurvedic Living Institute. That's where you can read about the seasonal cleansing, all the other courses that are available. And I do workshops once every month or so, cooking classes, also kind of smaller things if people just want to like get their toes in the water a little bit. And you can read about all three of my books at kateodonnell.yoga. Contact me. There's a newsletter link there, as well as a link to directly email me on that website.
Well, I'll make sure I leave all of the links for our Spirit Girl podcast audience so they can stay connected with you, grab a copy of your books, and just check out your incredible online courses and stay connected with you on Instagram and just be part of your incredible community. And you are constantly giving, Kate, sharing so much to help other people to feel good, and your knowledge and experience and what you've lived, eat, breathe, sleep is just so incredible, because right about now during this global pandemic, I know that we all want to feel good from within. So thank you for all of the work that you do share. You are truly a light worker on Mother Earth, on a mission to help others to feel good from within. And it's such a gift. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really great to be a part of a community that's interested in feeling good. And I love that, going viral with that. It's awesome.
Yeah. I love that. As they say, you're a sister from another mother. You know how the boys go, hey, brother from another mother? We're like, hey, sister from another mother. But thanks, Kate. It's been an absolute pleasure. I could speak to you literally for hours about your journey and self-care rituals. But if anyone has more questions, send them either to myself or Kate. And we'll say goodbye, Kate. Thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Yvette.
Be sure to subscribe, to leave a 5-star rating and review, and to tell someone you love to. And together, let's feel good from within.